Ethan had never expected his life to change this way. Started with a simple accident. One minute he was working late in his lab, the next, a bright flash of light surrounded him. Before he could react, he felt the ground beneath him disappear. The world spun around him, and he lost all sense of direction. When the light finally faded, Ethan found himself standing on solid ground, but this wasn't the familiar world he knew. The air was thick with unfamiliar scents, and the sky above him was a strange shade of purple. The buildings around him looked like something out of a futuristic movie, with sharp angles and smooth metallic surfaces. He was no longer in his laboratory, or even on Earth. A group of tall, armored figures approached him. They had green skin, and their eyes glowed with an eerie light. Ethan's heart raced as he tried to understand what was happening. One of the figures, much taller than the others, stepped forward and spoke in a language he couldn't understand. The words were sharp and cold, like the clicking of metal. Ethan didn't speak their language, but he could feel their hostility. He held his hands up in a peaceful gesture, but the alien soldiers didn't seem to care. They grabbed him by the arms and forced him to move with them. He was too overwhelmed to resist. Where was he? And how had he gotten here? They led him into a massive palace that seemed to stretch endlessly upward. The walls were adorned with strange symbols, and the floors shone as if made from polished crystal. Ethan couldn't help but feel like he was in a dream, one that wasn't going to end anytime soon. As they walked, he couldn't help but glance around, trying to make sense of everything. The alien soldiers didn't speak to him again, and he didn't dare ask questions. He didn't know if they would understand him or if they would care. All he could do was follow. Eventually, they arrived at a grand throne room. The room was large and open, with windows that overlooked the entire city. At the far end, sitting upon an imposing throne, was an alien woman. She was different from the soldiers who had brought Ethan here. She looked more regal, more powerful. Her skin was a deep shade of blue, and her eyes, though similar to the others, held a certain depth to them. Her expression was calm, but unreadable. She didn't look surprised to see Ethan. Instead, she looked like she was expecting him. The soldiers pushed Ethan forward, and he stumbled to a stop before the throne. He wasn't sure what was happening, but he knew one thing for sure. He was out of his depth. "Who is this?" the alien woman asked, her voice smooth and commanding. She didn't look at Ethan as she spoke, her gaze focused on the soldiers. Who had brought him in? One of the soldiers stepped forward and spoke briefly in the same sharp language. But the woman didn't seem to acknowledge him. She was still staring at Ethan, as if studying him. Ethan opened his mouth to speak, but the words caught in his throat. He wasn't sure what to say, and the weight of the moment hung heavily in the air. It was all too much, too fast. He wasn't prepared for this. The woman's eyes narrowed slightly, and she leaned forward, her gaze intense. "You are not from this world," she said, her voice now softer, but still full of authority. Ethan blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. "No, I'm not," he stammered, his voice trembling. "I don't know how I got here. One minute I was in my lab, to now a lab." The woman raised an eyebrow. "You do not belong here, human." Her eyes softened slightly, but her tone was firm. "You must have come through a rift. You are lucky to be alive." Ethan didn't know what a rift was, but he wasn't going to argue. He had no idea where he was or how he had ended up in this alien world, but at least he was still alive. For now, the woman finally stood, her movements graceful and deliberate. She walked down the steps of the throne, her eyes never leaving Ethan. "You will be brought to the council," she said, her voice cold again. "They will decide what to do with you." Ethan didn't argue. What could he say? He was a stranger, in a strange world with no idea how to get back home. The only thing he could do was follow the rules and hope for the best. The soldiers began to move again, guiding him toward the exit. But before they could reach the door, the woman spoke. Again, "Wait." Ethan turned back, his heart pounding. She was looking at him with a mixture of curiosity and something else he couldn't quite place. "Tell me." "Human," she began, her voice almost softer than before. "What do you know of the galaxy?" Ethan hesitated. I know a little. I'm not an expert, but I've studied some astronomy and physics. I know about other planets, and I know the galaxy is vast. But I never thought I would be here. The woman smiled faintly, as if she found his answer amusing. The galaxy is vast indeed. And you, human, will learn just how small your world truly is. You'll learn what it means to be a part of something much larger than you can imagine. Ethan wasn't sure if that was a warning or an invitation. Either way, it didn't sound good. With one last glance, the woman turned and motioned for the soldiers to take him away. As they left the room, Ethan's mind raced with questions, but there was one thing he knew for sure. He wasn't going anywhere soon. Ethan felt as though he was walking through a dream. The palace corridors were long and quiet, the walls shimmering with an otherworldly glow. The air was cool and smelled faintly of something sweet and unfamiliar. His thoughts raced as the alien. Soldiers led him through the winding halls, their footsteps echoing in the silence. He had no idea what was happening or where he was going. All he could focus on was the strange, blue-skinned woman who had greeted him in the throne room. Princess Ilara, that was her name, he had learned. She was the ruler's daughter, and despite her beauty and grace, there was a power about her that Ethan could feel even in the brief moments they had spoken. The way she looked at him, with eyes full of curiosity and authority, made him nervous. He wasn't sure if she saw him as a curiosity or something more dangerous. As they reached a large door at the end of the corridor, soldiers motioned for Ethan to step inside. The room beyond was spacious, with large windows offering a view of the alien city below. The stars in the sky seemed to shimmer with a light that felt both close and distant at the same time. It was like nothing Ethan had ever seen on Earth. The room was empty, save for a large chair in the center. Ethan hesitated, unsure if he was meant to sit or wait. One of the soldiers spoke briefly to him in their language. But when Ethan didn't respond, the soldier simply stepped aside. As if on cue, Ilara entered from another door. She was dressed in a long flowing gown, her hair pulled back in a simple but elegant style. She looked both royal and natural, as though she didn't need to try to command attention. It was given to her without effort. She smiled at him. But there was something unreadable in her eyes. "I trust you're not too uncomfortable?" she asked, her voice calm and smooth. Ethan nodded, still unsure of how to speak to her. I don't know what's going on," he admitted, his voice quieter than he intended. "I don't know how I got here. This place. It's nothing like anything I've ever seen." Ilara nodded thoughtfully, her gaze turning to the window where the stars seemed to swirl around the planet. "No, I imagine not," she said softly. "Our worlds are very different, aren't they? But you're here now." "Not such a bad thing," Ethan frowned, still trying to process what was happening. "What do you mean? Why am I here?" "It's your people bring me." Lara turned to face him, her expression serious. "It is complicated. You're a human, but there's more to you than meets the eye. Your arrival was unexpected. But I've had enough time to think about it, and I believe there is a way forward for you here." Ethan blinked, confused. "A way forward? What does that mean?" Lara's lips curved into a small smile. "I've been thinking about what you could offer and how you might fit into our society. You see, my people, we are bound by tradition. And our traditions dictate that a ruler must be married to someone of great power, someone who can help lead us. But the council..." She hesitated, her eyes darkening. "They do not see you as worthy." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "So you want me to leave?" "No." Lara shook her head, her voice firm. "Not at all. I want to offer you something more." Ethan looked at her, unsure of what to expect. "What do you mean?" Ilara walked closer, stopping just a few feet in front of him. "I want you to marry me." The words hung in the air, and for a moment Ethan couldn't breathe. He stared at her, trying to make sense of what she had just said. "What? Marry you?" "Yes," Ilara said, her voice calm but unwavering. "We are both bound by duty, Ethan. I need a partner, someone who can help me rule this planet, and someone who can stand beside me as we face the challenges ahead. The council might not approve, but I believe in us. I believe in what we could do together." Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came out. He couldn't understand what was happening. This alien princess, someone from another world, was offering him something that seemed impossible. He was a human, just a man from Earth. How could he marry her? How could they be partners? I know it's strange, Ilara continued, her eyes softening slightly. But in this galaxy, things are not always as they seem. Our worlds might be different, but there's a chance for something new. Together, we could unite our people. We could create a future that no one has ever imagined. Ethan took a deep breath, still trying to process her words. Wait, but why me? I'm just a guy from Earth. I'm not royalty. I don't have any power. Ilara smiled again, though this time it was more knowing. You have more power than you realize. You have the power to change things, Ethan. You have the power to see beyond the traditions that bind us. That is what I need. There was silence between them for a moment, and Ethan's mind raced. He wasn't sure if he was ready for this. He didn't even know if he believed in what she was saying. But there was something about her confidence, a strength that made him want to believe. I don't know what to say, Ethan finally managed to say. This is all so overwhelming. I didn't ask for this. Ilara's expression softened. I know you didn't, but sometimes destiny doesn't give us the choices we expect. Sometimes we have to choose a new path, even when it seems impossible. Ethan took another step back, his mind swirling with questions. He didn't know if he could marry her, or if he could be the man she needed. It wasn't going to be the same after this. His life, his world, had just changed in ways he couldn't even begin to understand. I'll need time to think about this, he said slowly, his voice unsure. I understand, Ilara replied softly, but just know this, whatever you decide, you won't be alone. I'll be with you every step of the way. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind to Ethan. He spent the time in the palace, walking through its grand halls, and trying to make sense of the situation. Princess Ilara's words from the night of their conversation echoed in his mind. Marry her? A human from Earth? Marrying an alien princess of this world? It seemed impossible. But it was becoming clearer with each passing day that this might be his new reality. Ethan didn't know what to think. He had come here by accident, a freak event that threw him into a world where he didn't belong. Yet here he was, faced with an offer he couldn't ignore. Ilara was not just a princess. She was a ruler in the making. Things from her, and now they would expect even more from the man. Oh, she would choose to stand beside her. The palace was both beautiful and overwhelming. The architecture was unlike anything on Earth. The walls were made of sleek, metallic surfaces that shimmered under the artificial lights. The air smelled like a mixture of flowers and something slightly metallic. A scent Ethan couldn't quite place. He spent a lot of time exploring the grounds, trying to clear his mind, but the weight of his situation never left him. One afternoon, as he wandered the palace gardens, Ilara found him sitting beneath a large tree, gazing at the alien. Sky. She walked up to him, her footsteps light on the grass. She had a soft smile on her face, but there was a hint of worry in her eyes. You've been thinking a lot, she said as she sat down next to him, about what I asked. Ethan didn't answer immediately. He just stared ahead at the swirling clouds above. He didn't know if he could do this. He didn't know if he could marry her. Not when he felt so out of place, so foreign in a world that was not his own. But there was something about Ilara, something that made him want to believe in her vision for the future. I don't know if I can do it, Ethan said quietly. I'm not like your people. I'm just a guy from Earth. I don't have the same strength or power. I don't know your traditions. I don't know how I would fit in. Ilara listened carefully, her expression thoughtful. I understand. Our worlds are very different. Your culture is not like ours, and the way we view leadership, power, and even marriage is not the same. But that doesn't mean you don't have something valuable to offer. It's not about strength or power alone. It's about vision. It's about the ability to see beyond what is in front of us. Ethan frowned. I don't know if I can see that far ahead, and let me show you, Ilara said, standing up and extending her hand. Come with me. I will show you why I believe this union could work, even if it seems impossible. Reluctantly, Ethan stood up, and followed her. They walked back into the palace, through the grand halls, until they reached a large room filled with maps and holograms. This room was where the leaders of Alara's people gathered to discuss the future of their world. The holograms floating in the air showed vast territories, alien cities, and stars that Ethan had never seen before. "This is what I am responsible for," Alara said, gesturing to the images. "My people are scattered across this planet and beyond. There are many challenges we face, from hostile neighbors to internal strife. I cannot do this alone, Ethan. I need someone who can think outside the box. Someone who understands that strength is not just about power, but about unity. Together, we could change everything." Ethan looked at the holograms, trying to make sense of what she was showing him. He had never been a politician or a leader, and the thought of becoming one terrified him. But he could see the determination in Alara's eyes. She was strong, not just in her title, but in the way she carried herself. She wasn't asking him to change who he was. She was asking him to be part of something bigger than himself. You think I can help with all of this?" Ethan asked, his voice uncertain. Alara smiled and nodded. "I believe you can, not like anyone else. That's why I think you're the right person for me. Together, we can lead my people into a new future, one where we don't rely on old traditions to define us, but instead create something new." For the first time since he had arrived, Ethan felt a spark of hope. Maybe he didn't know everything about this world or its people, but he could learn, he could help. And maybe, just maybe, he could make a difference. The next few days were a blur of meetings, discussions, and lessons. Alara took the time to teach Ethan about her world, about the customs, the politics, and the struggles her people faced. Introduced him to the royal council, where he was met with skeptical looks and cold stares. Many of the council members didn't understand why Alara was so insistent on a human joining their royal line. They didn't trust him, and they certainly didn't think he belonged. But Alara stood by him. She defended him, and in doing so, she challenged the very traditions her people had followed for centuries. It wasn't easy. There were moments of tension, moments when Ethan wondered if he had made the right choice. He wasn't a natural leader, and the pressure of what Alara was asking of him weighed heavily on his shoulders. But as time passed, Ethan began to understand the depth of the situation. This wasn't just about him and Alara. It was about the future of her entire world. The fate of her people rested on their ability to unite and lead together. One night, after a long day of discussions, Ethan and Alara sat together on the balcony of the palace, looking out over the city. The stars above them twinkled in the vast expanse of space. And for a brief moment, Ethan felt at peace. "I never expected any of this," Ethan said quietly, his gaze fixed on the sky. Alara smiled and leaned back in her chair. "Life doesn't always give us the choices we expect, but we have to make the most of the ones we're given." Ethan nodded, realizing that he had a choice to make. Didn't have to understand everything right now, but he could try, could help Alara, and together they could build something new. "I'll do it," he said, his voice steady. "I'll marry you. I'll stand by your side." Alara's eyes brightened, and a genuine smile spread across her face. "Thank you, Ethan. I knew you could see the bigger picture." The two of them sat in silence, the weight of their decision hanging in the air. They both knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was a road they would walk together. Ethan had never felt like an outsider in his own life, but now, standing before the Galactic Council, that was exactly what he felt. The large circular room was filled with beings from countless alien species, their faces stern and unfriendly. Some were tall and regal, others small and swift-looking. But all of them shared one thing. They did not trust him. He stood beside Princess Alara, his back straight, his hands clasped in front of him. She was as calm as ever, but Ethan could feel the tension radiating from her. This was not just a meeting, it was a trial, a test of everything they had been working toward. At the far end of the room, the council members sat in tall chairs that seemed to look down on the two of them. The leader, a tall alien with dark purple skin and sharp angular features, stared at Ethan for a long moment before speaking. His voice was cold, his words heavy with authority. Princess Alara, the leader said, his tone like ice. You have brought this human before us, claiming that he is fit to stand at your side. Yet there is no place for such an insignificant creature in the leadership of our people. Ethan felt a knot form in his stomach. He had expected some resistance, but not like this. The words stung, and he wasn't sure how to respond. Alara, however, did not hesitate. I stand by my decision, Alara replied, her voice unwavering. Ethan is more than just a human. He has qualities that none of you possess. He sees things from a different perspective, and that is exactly what we need. My people are stagnant, trapped by their own traditions. If we are to move forward, we must change. The council leader scoffed, his hands resting on the table in front of him. Change? You would bring a human into our midst and expect that change to be good? You underestimate the consequences of this decision, Princess. The air in the room grew heavier. Ethan felt the weight of their disapproval pressing down on him. He had never been in a room so full of judgment, so full of people who saw him as less than them. It wasn't just about being human. It was about the power he didn't have, the history he didn't share with them. Alara turned to him, her eyes softening. Don't worry. They are just afraid of the unknown. They fear change because it threatens their power. But we are stronger together. Her words gave him a small sense of hope. The council wasn't going to let them off easily. You may be the princess, one of the council members said, her voice high-pitched and sharp, but this is not just your decision. The people will never accept this union, and they will never accept a human ruling alongside you. Ethan could feel the sting of her words, but he refused to let them show. He had been an outsider all his life, but he wasn't going to back down now. This was his chance to prove that he could make a difference. Could be more than just a stranger in an alien world. Could be the partner Alara needed. He stepped forward, meeting the council members' gazes. I may be human, but I am more than that. I have learned more about your people in a few short weeks than many of you have in your entire lives. I understand the struggles you face. I see the way things have been done, and I see how it hasn't worked. I'm not asking to take over, I'm asking to help. The council was silent for a moment, their expressions unreadable. Then the leader spoke again, his voice hard as stone. You think you can help us? He asked, his eyes narrowing. Do you even understand the dangers we face? Do you know what's at stake? Ethan stood tall, despite the nervousness crawling. In his chest, I may not know everything, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to help. I'm not asking to change everything in a day, but I believe together we can build something stronger than what we have now. 4. A long moment, no one spoke. The council members exchanged looks, their faces a mixture of skepticism and uncertainty. Ethan could see the hesitation in their eyes, the fear of change, the fear of what this human might mean to their way of life. But then, to his surprise, the leader nodded slowly. This is not over, the leader said, his voice still cold. We will vote on this matter. If we find that your presence is too dangerous, you will be removed from this planet. We will not tolerate the disruption of our way of life. Ethan swallowed hard, but he didn't back down. I'll accept whatever decision you make, but I won't stop trying. I believe in Alara, and I believe in the future we can build. The council leader did not respond, but the rest of the council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had heard him. The tension in the room was thick, and Alara's hand brushed against his, offering silent support as they were escorted out of the council chamber. Ethan couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and determination. They had not won the council's approval, but they had not been rejected either. It was only a matter of time before the decision would be made. And whatever the outcome, Ethan knew one thing. He wasn't going to give up on Alara or on the future they had started to build together. The hallway was quiet as the door to the council chamber closed behind them. Alara turned to him, her face calm, but her eyes filled with uncertainty. You were incredible in there, she said softly. I can't imagine how difficult that was. Ethan smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. It's not over yet, but I'll keep fighting if it means standing by you. Alara's gaze softened. I'm glad you're here, Ethan. We may have a long road ahead of us, but I believe in you. I believe in us." As they walked down the hallway together, Ethan realized that no matter how challenging this new life was, he wasn't going to back down. Not now, not when everything was at stake. The days that followed were filled with tension. Ethan could feel the weight of the council's decision hanging over him like a storm cloud, threatening to break at any moment. Alara had told him that the council's approval was only the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead, convincing her people, the citizens of this strange and powerful world, that a human could stand beside their princess and lead them. Ethan had spent days learning more about Alara's people, their history, their struggles, and their traditions. He had immersed himself in everything she had taught him, trying to understand what it meant to be a ruler in this world. But it wasn't enough. The council had made it clear that they wouldn't easily accept him, and the people were even more resistant. There were whispers in the streets, rumors of an outsider who had come to take the throne. Ethan could hear them as he walked through the palace, his mind heavy with uncertainty. Would the people ever accept him? Would they ever see him as anything more than a human, an outsider? One evening, Alara invited him to a private meeting. They sat in a quiet room, away from the prying eyes of the palace staff and the council. The only sound was the soft hum of the palace's cooling systems. "Alara, I don't know if I can do this," Ethan admitted, his voice low. "I don't belong here. I don't belong in this world. I'm not a leader. I don't know how to make them believe in me." Lara reached across the table and took his hand, her touch warm and reassuring. "You are more than you think, Ethan. You have something that they don't. The ability to see beyond the rules, beyond tradition. You're not bound by the past. You have the chance to create something new." Ethan looked up at her, his eyes filled with doubt. "But what if they never accept me? What if I fail?" "You won't fail," Alara said firmly. "You don't have to do this alone. We are in this together. I believe in you." Her words were comforting, but the fear still lingered in his chest. He had never been a leader. He had never been in charge of anything more than his own small world back on Earth. How could he possibly take on the responsibility of an entire planet? The following day, they were summoned to the Grand Hall to face the people. It was time for Ethan to prove himself, to show that he wasn't just some outsider, but someone who could stand by Alara's side. The council had called for a public demonstration of his abilities, a trial to test whether he was fit to marry their princess and rule with her. The hall was packed with citizens from all walks of life. The atmosphere was tense, and the crowd murmured as Alara and Ethan walked into the center of the room. Ethan could feel their eyes on him, judging him, sizing him up. He was just a human, a stranger in a world that wasn't his own, and yet Alara had chosen him as they stood before the crowd. The council leader stepped forward, his tall form casting a shadow over them. "Princess Alara has brought this human to our world," he began, his voice booming across the hall. "But before he can rule with her, he must prove himself. He must show us that he is worthy of standing by her side." Ethan felt his heart race. This was it. It's a moment of truth. The council leader nodded to the soldiers, who brought forward a series of challenges, physical, mental, and political. Each challenge was designed to test Ethan's abilities, his strength, and his leadership. He would have to prove that he could hold his own against the best of their people. The first challenge was physical. Ethan was to face one of the palace's strongest warriors in a sparring match. The warrior, a towering alien with muscular arms and glowing eyes, stood across from Ethan, his stance aggressive and ready. Ethan had never been much of a fighter, but he couldn't back down now. He squared his shoulders and faced the warrior, trying to remember what Alara had taught him about their combat style. The battle was fierce, and for a moment Ethan thought he might lose, but then something clicked. He wasn't fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for Alara, for her people, and for the future they could build together. With that thought in his mind, Ethan moved with purpose. He dodged the warrior's blows, using his agility to his advantage. In the end, it wasn't strength that won the fight, it was determination. Ethan managed to disarm the warrior, causing the crowd to erupt in surprised applause. He had done it. He had proven that he could hold his own, but that was just the beginning. The second challenge was mental. Ethan had to answer a series of questions about Ilara's world, its politics, its history, and its future. He had spent countless hours studying, but there was so much to learn. Still, he didn't let the pressure get to him. He answered each question carefully, drawing on everything he had learned. By the end of the session, the council members were nodding in approval. Ethan wasn't just a fighter, he was a thinker too. The final challenge was political. Alaris. People were divided, and the council wanted to see how Ethan would handle the complex issues of leadership. He was given a scenario where he had to negotiate a peace treaty between two opposing factions. The factions were led by two strong-willed leaders who had been at odds for generations. The room was silent as Ethan spoke, his voice calm and steady, as he found a way to bring both sides to the table. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. He had shown that he could bring people together as the trials came to an end. Ethan stood before the council, his heart pounding. He had done his best. He had fought, he had learned, and he had led. Now it was up to them to decide if it was enough. The council leader stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "You have shown that you are capable, human," he said. "Are you worthy of the princess? That is for the people to decide." The room fell silent as the council leader turned to the crowd. "What say you, people of our world? Will you accept this human as your ruler's consort? Will you allow him to stand beside Princess Alara?" The silence hung in the air, thick, with uncertainty. But then, from the back of the room, a voice shouted, "We will." One by one, others joined in, their voices rising in support. It was slow at first, but soon the entire room was filled with cheers. They had accepted him. They had accepted them. Alara turned to Ethan, her eyes shining with pride. "You did it," she whispered, her voice full of emotion. "We did it." Ethan smiled, his heart swelling with a mix of relief and excitement. This was just the beginning. Together, they would build a future one where their worlds, their people, and their hearts could unite. The day after the public trial, the air in the palace felt different. There was a new energy, a sense of change that neither Ethan nor Alara could ignore. The people had spoken, and their voices were clear. Ethan had proven himself to be more than just a human from another world. He had shown the people of this alien planet that he could lead, that he could stand beside Alara as her partner, despite the cheers in the grand hall. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that his life had changed forever. He had been thrust into a world so far beyond anything he had ever known. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders, but it wasn't a burden he would bear alone. Alara was with him every step of the way. As the sun set over the alien city, Ethan and Alara stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out over the vast expanse of the world. The city below was alive with lights, bustling with activity, but the two of them remained still, as if caught in a moment of reflection. "You did it," Lara said, her voice soft, almost a whisper. "We did it," Ethan smiled, though there was still uncertainty in his eyes. "I can't believe it. I never imagined something like this could happen. One minute I was just a guy in my lab, and now I'm here, ruling with you." Lara turned to face him, her expression serious but filled with warmth. "You are more than just a guy. You are the one who helped me see the future. You are the one who will help me guide this planet, this people, to a better future." Ethan took a deep breath, the reality of it all beginning to sink in. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about them, together. It was about their shared vision, their shared strength. He wasn't alone in this fight. He had Alara, and now the people had accepted him. The next few days were a blur of meetings, ceremonies, and plans. The council had officially given their blessing, and the people had rallied behind them. Ethan had earned their trust, but the real challenge had only just begun. The council, though they had agreed to his place beside Alara, still viewed him with suspicion. They didn't fully trust his ability to rule. But the people, those who had been the most vocal in their support, began to see Ethan not as an outsider, but as a part of their world, their future. One evening, after a particularly long day of discussions, Ethan and Alara sat alone in the private quarters of the palace. They were both tired, but there was a quiet peace between them. It wasn't easy, but it felt right. They had made it this far. They would make it through the challenges ahead, together. "I've been thinking," Ethan said, looking out the window at the stars. "This isn't just about me fitting in. It's about all of us. This world, your people, they need change. They need a new way forward. One that doesn't just follow tradition, but embraces what's possible." Alara nodded, her gaze thoughtful. "I've been saying that for years. My people have been held back by old traditions, by fear of the unknown. They are afraid of change. But together, we can show them that change doesn't have to be something to fear. It can be something to embrace." Ethan turned to face her, his eyes filled with determination. "Then let's do it. Let's show them the way. Can't just talk about change. We have to be the change." Alara smiled, her eyes bright with pride. "I knew I made the right choice when I chose you. You were more than I could have ever hoped for." The two of them sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared future pressing down on them. But it wasn't a burden. It was a promise to each other, to their people, and to the future they would build together. Next few weeks saw more progress than either of them had expected. The people, though cautious at first, began to rally behind their new rulers. The changes were small at first: new policies, new laws, new ways of doing things. But with each change, the people began to see the benefits. They saw that Ethan and Alara weren't just trying to rule, they were trying to build something better. Ethan continued to learn from Alara, soaking up knowledge about her world, its history, and its people. He worked alongside her to develop plans for a more unified society, one that embraced both tradition and progress. They spoke to the council, the people, and anyone who would listen. Together, they started to change the way things were done, slowly and steadily. One day, as they were walking through the palace gardens, Alara turned to him with a smile. "Do you remember the first time we met?" Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. "How could I forget? You walked in like you already owned the place, and I thought I was going to be arrested on the spot." Alara laughed, the sound light and carefree. "I was just doing my job. But that day, I didn't know how much my life was going to change." Ethan stopped walking and looked at her. "I didn't know either, but now I can't imagine being anywhere else." Alara took his hand, her touch gentle but firm. "Neither can I. Together, we've built something strong. And together, we'll continue to build a future that none of us thought possible." As they stood there, hand in hand, Ethan realized just how far they had come. They had faced challenges, doubts, and fears, but they had come through it stronger. The future was no longer uncertain. It was theirs to create. And as the sun set over the alien world, casting long shadows across the palace, Ethan and Alara stood together, ready to face whatever came next. Together, they were unstoppable.